What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode. I'm here with my dear friend in real life, Josh Gresh. Thanks for coming on, man.
How's it going, brother?
Fantastic. I'm so stoked to talk to you.
Same.
It's amazing.
You don't mind if I speak
at
on the podcast, do you?
not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Cigar and a soda.
It's a free country, or it's supposed to be.
Yes, yes, it is.
We met at our both of our good buddies. You guys served together and went to his wedding.
Mhm.
And before I went, he was like, "Oh, dude, you're just gonna love Josh. You guys are gonna be like best friends." I was like, "What do you mean?" And then as soon as we met, yeah,
Oh, it was
just pure. Yeah, it was incredible.
I ditched my wedding date to hang out with you.
That poor girl.
Getting stuff for that wedding.
That was so fun.
I'll never forget that.
And the best wrestler, non-wrestler I've ever kind of wrestled with too. Might be a Pennsylvania thing. I don't know.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Do you want to know an actual, like, this is a fact, not even kidding. So the top 50 or top 25 wrestlers in the state of Pennsylvania get selected in the state of Pennsylvania. And then the top 50 out of all the other 49 states face the top 50 from Pennsylvania.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's like for wrestling, yeah, it's Pennsylvania's up there.
Okay, well tell us who you are, how you grew up, how you became the man you are today, why you believe in God, why you joined the military. Tell us about your life.
You want this to be a 6 or 7 hour podcast?
I'll
summarize. So I was born in Danville, Pennsylvania. Grew up in a town called Hazleton for like the first 7 or 8 years of my life, and then my old man had a construction company growing up. So I grew up doing construction, working with him, and so I could work construction with him and help out because we moved out of town, and my old man bought a larger property in which my little brother wanted cattle, so he could pursue that 4-H career and stuff through high school. So we ended up getting Black Angus beef cattle, and so that we could take care of the cattle full time and basically work, we were homeschooled as well. And so I grew up doing construction and working on farms and whatnot in the local area. When I graduated high school in May of 2010, I immediately in July enrolled in the Lackawanna Police Academy and graduated that December 15th of 2010 as well. I didn't want to be...
Why'd you want to be a cop?
Since I was a kid, I always just had this like sheepdog mentality. I always wanted to protect people. Of the ones I felt if somebody had to put their life on the line, I wanted to be that guy. I didn't want to be somebody hiding behind somebody if something went down. So I didn't want to be a cop though for the rest of my life. When I graduated, I was just 18 years old, almost 19 at that point. Joined the military, and I was going for a spec warfare contract, which is the only reason why it took me as long as it did to actually get to boot camp, because I was fighting for the spec warfare contract. Unfortunately for me, this was right after they had gotten bin Laden, and everybody and their mother wanted to be in the teams.
And so just really quick, do you think they got bin Laden? Just on my last podcast I did, actually, the person I was talking to was questioning if that was real.
No, none of the same thing with Hitler. Just to get into that really quick, I'm only going to touch on this and we'll move right on. Bin Laden was like basically in the White House on 9/11. The only reason that so he didn't have anything to do with politics um in the Middle East at all. His family owned a hitman company that the United States used in order to keep control of the oil tycoons over there. So they used him as like a scapegoat to like go bomb the mountains and take over every single sheep herder, in that
Yeah.
territory. Anyhow, no, same thing as Hitler. It was a body double. They found somebody else that was 6'4" with a beard and murked him. Why else would you dump this dude's body at sea? They're like, "We need to get rid of this evidence. No one's ever gonna see this."
Merc's my favorite
In
word too.
in into the ocean with him. Dumb,
Yeah.
dumb. Anyhow, moving past that, um, but I joined the military for the same reasons, like, I wanted to serve. If somebody had to go fight for freedom, I wanted to be a part of that battle. And at the time, I mean, you couldn't get any more, like, patriotic or anything else than I was. Spec warfare was falling through, and I didn't really want to spend any more time, like, fighting to, like, try and get a contract. So what I figured I'd do is I'd just join the military and another job closely related to, like, firearms and whatever else as I could in the Navy, and then cross-rate to spec warfare later on. That's why I joined the Seabees, because I had all the construction experience growing up. My line scores were, like, really good, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, I mean, you could be a CB tomorrow." And I was like,
And
"Alright, cool. Let's
CBs
go that
have
route."
fought CBs have fought in, if I'm not mistaken, every war since their existence, right? That we've been a
Yeah,
part of.
yeah. Um, World War II was their first ever, like, surfacing, and that was, I'm not good with names, but I forget the general's name. He saw the need for a construction element basically in the military in general, and since he was a commander of the Navy, he made that department out of the Navy. Um, but when you're a CB, you only deploy with CBs, with Marines, and with special warfare. Like, those are the only you're basically like you're never on a ship. The only ship I was ever on was a Swick boat in 2017. That was it. So my experience with ships is literally boot camp and battle stations, and that's it. But I
Yeah.
met um Kevin. I met Kevin there. Um and he was super cool, man. He was we all had 5-year contracts, but he was there I think 2 years before me. A year or 2 years, I forget which one. And we hit it off. Like, we got along super well. Obviously, had a lot in common. Um, Went through that whole career, but the one thing that kind of started where I am today is when I swore to defend the Constitution up into and including my life. I thought to myself, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I ever did, because I never read the Constitution. I'd never
That's
read it.
interesting.
So when I started reading the Constitution, and then I found out that every state has their own constitution that bulletproofs like the actual Constitution, here I am with this little book of the Constitution, the amendments, the everything, the Pennsylvania, state constitution, and I have my crimes code from the police academy there too. And I'm like, this is so contradicting. It's not even funny. Like, everything that I'm fighting for overseas and murking women, children, and men for, I'm not even allowed to do here. And it really thwarted all of my effort and desire to, like, um want to go overseas and fight, because I'm like, I swore to defend my constitution against enemies foreign and domestic, and it appears like there's some domestic ones here we need to talk to. You know what I mean? And figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So I went down my own unfortunately, I stuck to my own knowledge and understanding, and I taught myself constitutional law, courtroom procedures, statutes, regulations, you name it. I was The people that I've been in court with while I was fighting the system judicially, like they want you to. Um, the prosecutors and everybody would come up to me after the fact, whether the small cases and stuff I'd lose here and there, and for like registration, inspection, things of that nature. And then the first gun charge that I was ever given, I beat that one too. They're like, "You should be an attorney," and I'm like, "I am. I'm defending myself. I am an attorney. I just don't have that bar card, nor do I have the salary that you do. I'm paying out of pocket for this experience, you know." But
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
but yeah, that was how I got here. I was born and raised in a Christian household. Um, my birth mother ended up running around on my old man. My old man left his faith because of, or stopped pursuing Christ, I guess you'd say, because of that being his second marriage that fell through. He blamed it on, everything but what the actual root of the problem was. The old lady claims to be a Christian, but obviously isn't walking in the same light. So all of my siblings and stuff are just kind of like out there doing their own thing. I don't even know where they stand. Um, I never lost my faith. For a while though, I stopped pursuing it. And I'll tell you what, the difference in quality of life is why I believe in God, straight up. Because the whole time that I was trying to fulfill my wants, needs, and desires and thought I was doing what made me happy, I mean, that's why everyone's life, if you start really looking at it, that thinks that it's good, it's actually like empty and they suck. And they're like, "Oh, check on your friends. Check on your friends." Because even if they seem happy, they're probably depressed. That's what that life gets you. It's empty. It seeks self-fulfillment instead of what really actually feeds your soul, which is, one of a giving heart. And
Exactly.
it's it's crazy. It really is crazy how, like, when you
It
when you
is.
just follow God's word, how everything makes you happy, and you're like, it just makes sense. Everything makes
Do you
sense. And then
remember? Do you remember you reached out to me and you're like, dude, you should read the book of Revelations. And I was like,
Mhm.
dude, I just read it, like through it, like front to back for the first time. It was like within days of you calling or texting me that.
Yeah, I do remember that, and it was like days before, like, you had just finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Not, I don't know if I believe in coincidences.
I don't. God's plan is not a coincidence. When you
Yeah.
read Revelations, like, I always say that the devil's the dumbest motherfucker out there, because all he'd have to do is not play by the book. He's been here for thousands of years and hasn't figured out that all he has to do is just not do what it says.
Yeah.
And he and inadvertently, he kinda wins, you know?
Yeah. And then
Nope, not
after that, read the whole thing through front to back, the whole Bible for the first time, actually, which is
dude, that's
interesting.
awesome. I I just here recently this past year, because of my time, that of incarceration, I read through it 2.5 times. I'm on my 3rd time, like, reading through it. Um, when you have that much downtime, you read a lot. And I chose to read the Bible as much as possible. But, yeah, the book of Proverbs, my favorite. My favorite is the book of
Why?
Proverbs. Well, one, it's written by King Solomon, who is, by God's own word, the smartest man that ever lived and that ever will live. So he's the smartest man ever to walk the face of the earth. There's a book written by him, and it is a snitbit, because I think he had like 3,000 or some odd proverbs, and that only covers like maybe 1,000 of them. And it's just everything that you could imagine with life. And it's a whole bunch of sayings. Basically, like, um, a man is better to live in the corner of his rooftop than in a home with a quarrelsome wife. Or one is in like, one who meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who grabs a passing dog by the ears. Like, just all these sayings that like, you can just relate
Yeah.
to life. It's love not sleep, lest you go hungry, you know. Things like that just make so much sense. You're just like, man, this is if I just had these posted on my wall and lived by them, you know, I'd do
Yeah.
so much better in life. It says, "As a door turns on its hinges, so does a sluggard in his bed." Like, it's just so epic. This dude is like was rapping
Yeah.
back before it was a thing. Just dropping lines.
Yeah.
The whole book is just bars. Awesome. But that's how I honestly like got to this point that I am, and why I revere the Lord so much is just through his own presence within my own life. And like you were saying, like it's not coincidence that all of these things happened. It's not coincidence that I went through the police academy, joined the service, and um ended up going down this road because of all that, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and I do rodeo too.
Yeah, you do music too.
Adrenaline rush.
You can play some, guitar too.
I play a lot of instruments actually. I got to show you a song that my buddy was working on, dude. It's a banger.
That sounds great.
Remind me to do that after we get done here.
Okay. So, where are we at now? You mentioned something about, you know, being incarcerated. I'm wondering what, that's all about.
Incarcerated, yeah.
Incarcerated, yeah.
It stemmed from that first case that I actually won. Right after that, they ended up maliciously putting the same county. They right after I won that case, they put charges on me. There's actually 3 felony charges for falsifying documents to obtain a firearm, even though I had never been charged, or I'm sorry, I'd never been convicted of a crime before that. Somehow I falsified documents. Um, when I'd gotten stopped, which is like a year down the road when I finally got pulled over again, that warrant popped. Um, and they pulled me out of the car and they charged me a second time with carrying a firearm without a license. I fought both cases at the same time. The the second there was a different county then that I was fighting the concealed carrying without a license. The very malicious actions were taken in that, and that's where I actually started to find out the fraud in the system, and, I realized just the extent that they'll go to in order to make a good man bad. Oh, they just can't lose, basically. So what the judge did, and even the prosecutor, they called up to the other county, they were talking to the other judges, and they they had the actual district attorney as my prosecutor because of me winning this other case. It took like their precedence in the matter. So I didn't even have like just any old, public defender or, DA assistant or something on this. They threw the district attorney on this case to prosecute me. Well, he called
The
up the other
actual one, not a
yeah.
deputy DA. It was the DA. I've never seen that.
So, he calls up to the other county and figures out what my defense was to win that case. The day of the hearing, the judge calls me back in his chambers with the prosecution out of the earshot, everybody, because he wants to be off the record when he says this. He tells me, he said, "You're not, but you don't have a bar card and you don't have any training and stuff like proper training in law. You have to tell me all the cases that you want to bring up, case law. You have to tell me everything with like the Constitution or anything I wanted to bring up that pertained to law with my defense. I had to tell him, and he would tell me whether or not I could speak on it or not, whether it
Interesting.
pertained to the matter. And so he basically right then and there forwarded all of my constitutional relevance in the case. And they did that on purpose because the constitutional relevance blows them out of the water and would bring a jury to light us into like, oh yeah, we do have rights. Why is this a thing? So when he did that, the jury, I couldn't sway the jury into a constitutional mindset. I couldn't present half of my defense. And they ended up finding me guilty then of the charges of carrying a firearm without a license. And when that happened, the judge left me out on unsecured bail because I told them I was going to appeal the decision. And they're like, okay, like we'll let you go through the whole appeal process. And we'll see how that goes basically, and then we'll figure everything out afterwards. So I'm still fighting everything, and that's where I was defeated, and unfortunately, I had waited until this point in my life to console the Lord and ask for his wisdom and discernment. And I had studied for 6 years at this point, constitutional law, statutes, regulations, you name it. And um I console the Lord for wisdom and discernment, and within 6 months, right, just randomly through social media platforms, people just randomly hitting me up, different connections I made in um, just the course of my life, whether it was working on different jobs and stuff, and then being hearing my story and being like, I know a guy who might be able to help you out, and this, that, the other thing. Right? I have a guy that I know. Just within 6 months, I surpassed all of the knowledge that I learned in the entire 6 years of me trying to dig into this stuff on my own. It was incredible. And I, out of the gate, proved that the entire thing is fraudulent. The only thing that, um, screwed me and why I was incarcerated was because I was filing documents with this court claiming my corrected status of being a foreign sovereign. That is not a sovereign citizen, by the way. A foreign sovereign is very different.
What is that?
Um, a foreign sovereign is somebody who actually goes through the paperwork process in order to alleviate themselves of all contracts with the United States, the corporate United States, and claim not only their living self, but all of the fraudulent property that was created on your behalf without you knowing. A sovereign citizen is somebody who screams that they have rights without going through that process. So they know that
Okay.
process exists, or I'm sorry, they know the rights that you're supposed to be entailed, but they don't go through the proper, paperwork process or procedures in order to actually have the documentation to alleviate themselves of the actual contract that everyone is unknowingly bound in.
What are like some rights that we have or are supposed to have?
The actual Constitution and the amendments and the entire Declaration of Independence. If you are a United States citizen, you have no right to any of them. That's a complete guise. That's why in the United States they'll incarcerate you until you prove you're innocent. That's not innocent until proven guilty. So right there, they're proving that you don't have that right. As a citizen, you
Yeah.
have privileges. That's why driving is a privilege. And they're like, well, if you don't do this, that, or the third, it's because you're their property. Citizen in Black's law means property. So if you're a United States citizen in their own euphemism of words, because like I said, they're not using English. If you go into court and ask them what language they're speaking, they won't answer you because they'll have to on the record admit to speaking in legalese, which isn't English.
Interesting.
So if they're not speaking in plain English and they're not going to tell you what language they're even speaking in there, you can't build your case.
If we're
By the
supposed to
way,
have all these you know, rights given to us from God,
you
whatever
do.
you
How
want to
they
call them,
circumnavigate all that is through the birth certificate because that's a contract. You're not told that, but the birth certificate is a contract.
what's the contract? Yeah.
The contract is to become a United States citizen, and they tell you that that's a good thing. It ain't. So what they try to claim is like United States. You definitely want to be a United States citizen, or you can't be here. That's not true. You want to be an American. You don't tell me
I
where
think that's what
you
most people think of themselves,
you
at
would
least in the
think.
abstract.
You would think, but
Yeah.
that's the guise. That's the ignorance that they rely on, people thinking that, not knowing the difference. United States, um, if you looked up a picture of the Declaration of Independence right now, anybody can do this. Look up a picture of the Declaration of Independence. Look at the very top header. United is lowercase united. The capitalization starts with States of America because this was a federation of states. The way that they work is the same way with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. That was a name created, and they tell you this on any documentary at Jekyll Island. They said, we need to name something that will give the people a sense of security so they'll throw their money into it. So if we name this the Federal Reserve, people will think that it's the federal government. Well, they made the same thing with the corporate United States. They're like, if we call it United States, but we spell the U and the United is the key word here, is the capital U, United States, it'll be a completely different entity because it's spelled differently, but we're going to claim that entity. It's the same as your living name would be Harrison with a capital H, the rest of it lowercase, your middle name with the capital letter, all other lowercase, Tinsley, capital T, and all the rest lowercase. Your birth certificate, your
Right.
driver's license, your social security card, all of those are an all capital name for a reason. It's in all capital because it's a completely separate entity. It's spelled the same, or I'm sorry, it's spelled the same, but, or I'm sorry, it would sound the same, but it's spelled different. In contract law, if it's spelled differently, it is a completely different entity. The only thing it is it sounds the same when you were to say them. So when you walk into a court and they say, you state your name for the record, you would say, my name's Harrison Tinsley. What
Harrison
they are not
Tinsley, yeah.
telling you is you just identified as that corporate entity, the all capital name. If you go into a court and they say, state your name for the record, you just be like, I'm a living man. And they'd be like, okay, but like, what's your name? And you'd be like, are you asking me that at a corporate level, or are you asking me my living name? They won't be able to answer you those simple questions. That's what I proved through this whole process, because when they incarcerated me, it's because I sent these documents to them. They failed to follow due process. They didn't add it to the docket, and they never responded to them. I looked online and it said my case was inactive, so I didn't show up to the hearing because it said it was inactive. I'm not going to show up for them to tell me that the case is inactive. I can see that online. You guys made the case inactive. You haven't filed my documents to the docket, and you haven't answered or responded to them. So we have a failure for due
If,
process here. So they picked me up on a capias warrant like couple of weeks later. On the warrant itself, it says you're supposed to see a judge within 30 days. Or sorry, within 3 days, 72 hours. They didn't know how they were going to talk to me or what I was going to say on the record. They were like scared to see me. It was 34 days before I seen the judge for the first time.
that they just held you?
And literally it literally says it right on the bottom of any warrant. It says, whoever is not to be held longer than 72 hours, and they exclude the weekends, like the very next business day. So 72 business day hours. You're not supposed to be detained longer than that, or they have to let you cut you loose. 34 days I was in there without seeing somebody. So
Sounds like a
when I
clear
finally see the
violation
judge.
of your right to a sounds like a clear violation of your right to a speedy trial at a minimum.
That's statute of limitations. Just that means that the prosecution has to take you to trial like within a year. And for different like felony matters and stuff like that, I think it's longer than that. I think they have for felonies, I think they have like 2 years or 5, I don't even know. But for like your regular like summary case, they have a year to take it to trial, or else it's a statute of limitations violation. However, however, regardless, literally by law, they can only hold you on a capias warrant for 72 hours. They held me for 34 days before I seen a judge. And when I seen that first judge and I started putting all this on the record, because they had me on a teleconference, and they're like, all right, what's your name? I was like, I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question because you haven't told me what jurisdiction you're operating in. I sent you these documents and you haven't responded to me. I can't build a case. Therefore, I can't converse with you on anything in this matter because you haven't told me what jurisdiction this court's claiming. I already pointed out fraud in your paperwork that you guys are already impersonating 4 different jurisdictions. Click. He hits the mic, cuts me off.
Mutes your
Oh,
mic.
yep, revokes bail. So I was to be detained until the next hearing. He set the next hearing for 2 months out. So at that point, I'm already in 3 months until I see the judge a second time. Or, yeah, until I see the judge a second time. I see him the second time, and it's to remove counsel, meaning So what happened was is they put they put a public defender on my case without me even wanting it. So I filed a motion to have the counsel removed. So I seen a judge a second time for the motion to remove counsel. I removed the counsel in this hearing, and he assigns me a standby counsel. I said I object. I do not want nor need any counsel whatsoever. I don't want standby counsel. I object to it, and it is a crime you even doing this against my will. Guess what? Still put the standby counsel on against my will. And he did that so he
Wow.
could keep me detained, but still it shows a violation of due process, his oath of office, the whole nine. And he's making decisions to benefit himself or a third party. So then after that, he sets it back another 3 weeks until I see him again for the actual, hearing. I go in for that trial and I tell him, I said, hey, he's like, how do you want to proceed? I said, I'm not proceeding. I object to all of the proceedings. We're not moving forward. You haven't, I have the right by your own code to challenge the jurisdiction of this court at any time. I'm challenging it. Tell me by showing me the lawful documentation and legal documentation as to what jurisdiction this court's claiming and operating in. Show me it now. Get him out of here. Waited another week. I go the next time and tell him the same exact thing. I said, I'm a living man. I'm not answering any of your questions. I don't consent to any of the proceedings. You can't claim a jurisdiction. And I asked him too, I said, did you receive my documents? He goes, no. Really? 'Cause I got a return receipt from the United States Postal Code with your address on it, proving you got those documents, and I have copies of them. What are we doing here? You just not only just
What did he say
completely
to that?
incriminated, you just incriminated the heck out of yourself, and I'm just gonna sit here in your jail until I get enough people causing hell about this because I still had people from the Pennsylvania Assembly and everything, which is the other foreign sovereigns here in Pennsylvania, raising hell. They were sending paperwork and what all else. So what's he do? He goes, I see your bail was revoked. He goes, I'm going to set your bail at $1,000 at 10%. So you pay $100, you can get out today. So I paid $100 and got out after three and a half months, almost 4 months.
Is it the theoretical charges that he wants to put against you, be them valid or not? If they theoretically sentenced someone for that crime, we'll call it, would they even have been in jail that long anyways, normally? 'Cause I assume
Oh
probably
yeah.
not, at least in
Yeah.
California. Yeah?
If they were to incriminate me on, because it's 3 different counts that they're hitting me with 2 counts of falsifying documents to obtain a firearm and 1 count of materially false written statement, and they're all felony 3rd degrees. So like the lowest tier felony, but a felony nonetheless. I'd be looking at 5 years if minimum if they found
Wow.
me on those.
Interesting. That's kinda crazy. Okay. That puts it in context more perspective.
Yep. And the gun case, the one out of Columbia County that I appealed to the Superior Court, another reason that this holds a lot of validity to me is because when I filed my documents to the Superior Court, they vacated the case. So as soon as those documents hit their desk, they were like, "Ooh, nada,
Yeah.
can't have that."
Why do you think it is that they would be doing this? You know, like taking
Money
everyone
control. If
classic
you
human temptations, yeah?
here's the way that it should work. There has to be a living injured party. So I just told this example to some gentleman on Sunday. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Monday night. I think it was last night.
There has to be a living person that was hurt for what?
A living injured party for there to be a crime.
Crime, okay.
So if you murder someone, the next of kin or somebody else, the actual like living party that's injured. If you were to like kill me, the injured party could be Mary, it could be like my girl, could be my old man. You know what I mean? Like they're injured by it.
Yeah.
So they could press the charges. And you're like, oh well, what if someone like doesn't have family? That's where a state could step in. obviously. You were a contributing member to their society and stuff, but there has to be a living injured. If I was living and you killed me, I was a living injured party. Just because I'm deceased doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but there has to be a living injured party. Meaning if you damage my property, I'm still a living injured party. I can press the charges. Anything that says state of California versus Harrison Tinsley is fraud because they're claiming that the state of California is a living being that is injured and it's versus you. And their own code, Uniform Commercial Code, states that for two entities to do business, they have to be two like entities. That's why on that paperwork where it says state of Pennsylvania versus you, it'll be state with capital S and then lowercase state of, and then like capital C, lowercase, everything else in California. And your name will be spelled that way exactly the same. That's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The state of California can't be that because it's not a living being. And if you look at the top left, and if you look at the top left corner of those documents, state of California will be in all capital because that's the corporate entity. So right there on the same paper, they're showing the two different jurisdictions that they're jumping between, which is fraud.
Right. So when you get a speeding ticket and it's like, oh, California versus Harrison Tinsley,
Fraud. You can void it.
I'd like to see a lot more people avoid things like that.
You can go there and tell them that you're a living being, especially when they tell you, see what a lot of people, what everybody doesn't understand is they need your consent in order to carry any of the proceedings. It's the same way as Satanism. If a witch is selling poison apples, right? And she sells them and it says poison apples, but they taste really good. And you go ahead and buy one of them apples and eat it. That Satanist isn't liable for your death. They won't get accused of your death. If it says really good tasting apples and they're poison apples and you eat it, they maliciously then killed you. It wasn't by your own ignorance. So then they will pay the price for it. This government is built the exact same way. Inadvertently, you self-incriminate. When you go in there, they'd be like, "Are you Harrison Tinsley?" And you'd be like, "Nope." And they'd be like, "Oh, well then who are you?" You'd be like, "I got to know what jurisdiction you're in or answer any of your questions. I ain't the Harrison Tinsley you got on that paper."
What's an answer they could give you that you would feel would be necessary to reveal who you are in some way?
Here's my opinion. If they're asking you who you are, how do they have any business with you? If they don't know that you're Harrison Tinsley when you walk into that place, well, for the record, state your name for the record. No.
Okay.
Plead the fifth. No, you have to. Says who? Why do I have to state my name for the record? Do you know who I am?
Right. An injured party, if they were injured by you, they'd know who you are.
Exactly.
Right.
But on the record, they need you to identify so that they can claim that you're the corporate entity that they have on that paperwork. If you go in there and say exactly what I just said, I'm not the Harrison Tinsley that you have on that paperwork. I need to know what jurisdiction you're operating in. Show me legal documentation claiming the jurisdiction and nature of the parties of this court and this court. They will not be able to do it, brother. They can't claim a jurisdiction or they're automatically incriminating themselves because they're operating in 4 different jurisdictions. They're operating in Maritime Admiralty Law, Uniform Commercial Code, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and British law.
That just seems crazy. That would mean that like everything people go to court for all the time, basically, is just some sort of a lie.
Do you know that every single person that is in prison right now, if they were to get a hold of the QSIPs, which there is people that have done this, if they get a hold of the QSIPs, which is basically the tracking number for the bonds that the court created without them knowing, which would prove that there was financial interest in the case, like prisoners who are actual murderers, rapists, you name it, child molesters, they could get out based on the fraud because the state or the Commonwealths ignorantly did not, for their own selfish reasons, actually put a living injured party as the prosecutor. They put state of California. Why is the state of California the injured party in this matter if such and such murdered who or raped who or molested who?
They have some DA claiming to represent,
which is fraud.
The living
fraud because
the living person of California.
I did this too. This is great. This is on the record. The court would be like, "How does Commonwealth of Pennsylvania wish to proceed?" I'd be, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." I said, "Objection." I said, "Let the record show that the judge is misaddressing this man whose name is Julian, who's a living man standing next to me, and his name is not Commonwealth of Pennsylvania."
What
And
did they say?
the judge is like, "Well, we can all see that Julian here is a living man." I said, "Oh, you can." I said, "So then, again, you incriminated yourself by proving that you are misaddressing him as a corporate entity called Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I have questions for Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Where is Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?" Well, they're representing. No, I have the right to face my accuser. Get Commonwealth of Pennsylvania up on that witness stand right now. I have questions for it. Him or her, whoever the fuck it is. Get Commonwealth of Pennsylvania up there right now. They can't do it.
Right.
And
So
if Nutty Bozo is claiming to be the injured party, he would have to tell me how I injured him. What's the DA or any other prosecutor would they have on you if you were speeding down the road? How'd you injure him? Get it?
obviously no one's hurt when someone's just going a little over the speed limit.
Right. There is no injured party. So it's fraud. If you stand on that business, they can't move forward.
Well, so what do you foresee, or what's going to happen for your case then that they're trying to put against you,
I have a guy right
considering
now.
all this?
I have a guy right now who is here in the next couple of days going to send me the QSIP number for that case. I'm going to prove that the judge has had financial interest in the matter since its conception. And I'm
Prove it
going
to who though? The
to,
judge himself in his own court?
yeah,
Wouldn't he just be pissed off?
sure, but I'm going to report him to the Superior Court Disciplinary Board,
Okay.
and I'm going to file charges on him. I'm an injured party now.
Being held, basically, against your
Not
will,
only that,
I assume.
but if he had a financial interest in this matter and placed charges on me under fraud and knew it was fraud, had a financial interest and didn't remove himself, he violates his own oath of office. That's tyranny.
Right.
He made me an injured party by violating his oath of office, and I have this as proof even on their own transcripts. So even if I had to fight their own system, which I don't have to, they ultimately don't have a leg to stand on, because this would this whole case would go to a jury of peers. So if it's going to a jury of peers, I only have to convince the jury that he committed fraud, and I have the transcripts and everything right in front of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He incriminates the shit out of himself. They don't, and the big thing is they don't want this getting to that point, because then people at a massive rate would start waking up to exactly what we're talking about now. And
Do you think that people are
once
going to
it,
start waking up to it?
they already
Or do
are.
you think that tyranny is going to hold?
The blue helmets are going to come out as soon as it starts to make enough movement. They already have them in the United States right now, or
What
America.
What's a blue helmet?
The UN force, the UN force that they busted through in the millions under the Biden administration. All those illegal aliens and stuff from Venezuela, China, Russia, Indonesia, you name it. Like all those different guys of a militant age. The
Are you
last,
seeing the riots in LA right now?
yeah. You wanna see what's
What do you
gonna
think about that?
happen? It's the start of the blue helmets. They're gonna start breaking
It's
out
like the
dudes who they've been training for the last 4 years now on American soil. They've been teaching them
those are
English.
the rioters or the people coming to stop them?
No, the rioters right now are just people who there'd be the same with like you remember the FBI agents that were in the insurrection at the Capitol?
Yeah, I remember that.
FBI agents they had in place there, the Secret Service agents, like, we gotta go inside. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. This is the same thing on both sides. They play both sides of the fence. So there's people there, there's antagonizers. They're put in place for a reason. They're there to escalate the situation. So in this whole matter right now, it's just a couple of extremists, I guess you'd call it, escalating the situation. When it's gonna get real interesting, is where they start dispatching squads of about 8 to 12 men who have been trained the last 5 years in weapons, tactics, and that, and they start going and actually raising hell, because what's going to happen then is that's where they call for the weapons ban, and that's where they start collecting. But what people don't understand is they just put 2 million militant age men in this country, right? So they
Right.
dispatch about 100 of those men in certain cities all over America to cause hell and kill a bunch of innocent people. And then when they start calling for the weapons ban, the rest of the 2 million are going to start donning uniforms of state police, of highway patrol, of sheriffs, of whatever other type of militant force you want to name, National Guard. They've been taught English, how to speak English the last 5 years. They've been put in camps, special camps all over America, and they've been literally fed, taught, like they're going to sound like me and you talking right now, but the guy's actually from Venezuela.
What's the goal though? What are they trying to do?
A complete takeover of America. Tyranny at its finest. This is the last stronghold of the world. Once America falls and they have this under control to the point where there is no there'd be no one strong enough to stand up to stand against the tyranny. Remember, America has been the militant force, unfortunately, catapulting this entire global takeover through our own military.
Team
We've
America
gone to
World
all those
Police?
countries and unstabilized any country that has gotten close to becoming um a threat to the powers that be, the global takeover. Look at Hitler, look at Gaddafi, look at Saddam Hussein. And be like, oh, they were terrible people. Okay. How was Hitler terrible? Concentration camps. It's like, the concentration camps were proven to be run by the Russians. They were prison of war camps. And when the only reason that like Auschwitz looks so bad is because the United States military bombed the entire camp. Auschwitz was a prison of war camp. The United States bombed it.
Wow. What
And they
about
cut off.
Gaddafi and
So
Saddam?
Gaddafi's whole plan was to turn the deserts of Africa into tropical paradises like it used to be. The only reason Africa is such a desolate wasteland is because the powers that be, the globalists, the ones who actually run the world, cut off the water supplies to all those lands and redirected them. So there's no water. It's the only reason that's a desert to begin with. So Gaddafi's plan was to reroute water back through the country and make it a tropical paradise. And then where his big plan was that was scaring the powers that be was he was going to create their own currency in Africa and back it with all of the resources of Africa, mineral rights. It would have been the most
Okay.
power. It would have been the most powerful. It would have been the most powerful currency there was. It would have taken over the U.S. dollar like that because we're not backed by anything but a thought. Go on your computer right now and Google search this. All I want you to do is type in soldier sitting on gold. Funny thing is, if you punch in United States soldier sitting on gold, none of these pictures will come up. You have to punch in soldier sitting on gold, hit images.
Yeah. I see a bunch of them.
That's why we were over there in Iraq. That's why we went into Afghanistan. That's why we had a problem with Saddam Hussein, because he
But
stopped
that's
trading. He stopped trading with
oh, yeah, Iraq. Yeah.
He stopped trading with other countries based on currency. He demanded gold and silver to do any type of trading. So his oil reserves there and his trading with other companies built his gold reserve into those pictures that you've seen. That's the whole reason we were over there. You know why they killed Chris Kyle? Because he was writing a
I thought it
second
was
book.
weapons of mass destruction.
That's what they told you
Wasn't
and
that
I.
the Iraq War?
Yeah. That's why they told you and I, so we'd go over there and kill women, children, and men. Why do you
And
think
what was Chris Kyle's second book?
Chris Kyle's second book was called The Men in Black Suits? and he was
Who,
talking about
who
he's going to be
the
talking
men in
about
black suits?
he's going to be talking about all the men that worked for the CIA and Secret Service and stuff that were coming in behind him and taking all these gold reserves and taking the gold out. He's seen behind the actual operation. A lot of those
That's
special
wild.
guys and stuff were behind the curtain without even knowing it.
Well, when we talk about like the powers that be or the deep state or the World Economic Forum or the UN, blue helmets, all these things, who are we actually talking about and what's their objective?
It's the Orsini family. They go back to the Egyptian Empire. From the Egyptian Empire, they became the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire was about to collapse, they turned the actual Roman government into a church. That's why it's called the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican is actually the Roman Empire. And the Orsini family, they realized once they got a grip on things that the way to control the world was through banking, was through the currencies. So the Orsini family stays completely behind the scenes. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Soros, um, they're all the same. All of them, all of their genealogy goes back to the Orsini family. They're all descendants of them. But you never hear about the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds. But they have all of the political say in things because they're the ones that control the stock market. They're the ones that control the currency. They're the ones that control all of the platforms, media, news, you name it. Anything that you get in your life is controlled by them right now. Anybody in government is just their puppet. The United States is a corporation owned by the Bank of London.
I mean, if that's the case and that's true, then how can we stop that and live how we're supposed to live?
This is also United States code. I'll show you this. United States code is 28 USC 3002-15. I might be
Okay.
able to just hold this up to the computer and have you see it. Hang on. Actually, no. Are you on your computer to do this? I'll send it up.
Oh yeah, I could pull it up right now.
I'm sending it to your phone. I just text you it.
All right, let's see what we got.
Read the very first line of that. Subsection like A in that. It says United States.
United States means a federal corporation.
Stop right
That's
there.
the first line.
That's it. You see how United
The
States
next one,
capital U?
the next one's not very good either. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. I'd encourage people to look this up themselves.
Absolutely. It's United States code. It's 28 USC subsection 3002. In parentheses, you can look up 15. It's a subsection 15. So I'm sorry, subsection 3002-15. Yeah.
Could it just be that they
United States?
and it has be that they have no other way of defining a country or something like that?
That is the actual makeup of the United States corporation. If you go back to the War of 1812, the War of 1812 was the Brits coming back over and taking over very strategic places in America, which ran the government. It took over Boston. Massachusetts is a commonwealth. Pennsylvania is a commonwealth. Virginia is a commonwealth. And Kentucky is a commonwealth. They took over Pennsylvania because that's where the White House used to be. Philadelphia used to be the White House, like the actual capital. They took over Boston.
I bet so many people don't even know that.
No, absolutely not. And the Civil War was America versus the UN. If you say UN, but you made it a word, it sounds like union, wouldn't it?
A little bit, yeah. Sounds like it.
So the Union was the UN, the United Nations. It was it was a collection of a bunch of countries coming over here, and the American government was the Confederacy. The reason that there was a peace treaty was because America was kicking butt in that war. That's why the last battle fought was here in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg. The last battle was fought up here because America had pushed them all the way back and was like threatening to push the UN right into Canada. So they decided to make a treaty. That's why there wasn't a surrender. The treaty was that the United States would basically be the bitch of America for the time being, while the Americans went back and reassorted and got their family affairs back in order because of obviously being the slaughter there was. They had to go back and reestablish their wills and get their family affairs and stuff in order. But then when they went back home, it was like, why would we even go take back over? Like, these guys are our bitches. They're just going to do all our paperwork for us. And it was really good for about probably 50 years. But then 150 years of them sitting there placating the system, creating the birth certificate, creating the social security card.
Federal
It's a
Reserve.
deep hole. I'm gonna turn this light on real quick. Hang on. Yeah, and the creation of the Federal Reserve was after that. The first the first shots fired in the Civil War were at Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was a base off the coast of Virginia, and it guarded the coast. The first shots were fired there because the British forces were controlling it. You want to see something cool?
Yeah.
If you go, I think I already showed you. Didn't we already look up the Webster's dictionary?
It was a different day, but yeah, we've gone into it.
Yeah. So Commonwealth, spelled with a capital C, is a federation of states formerly ruled by the King of England. So then Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Kentucky are all states formerly ruled by the Crown of England.
Well,
And
sure,
state
but isn't that then who we broke free from or whatever in the revolution?
in the
So they were
Revolution, but
technically
in the
formerly.
Revolution, our history isn't taught to us properly. The War of 1812 was the Brits coming back over and taking over our politics. The Civil
I don't
War,
even remember learning about the War of 1812 hardly at all
you
in
won't.
school.
You won't, because the outcome of that war was extremely crucial in our history as to the downfall of America. So from right
So
there,
how do we get America back then? How do we
by, by
do,
going through this
you know,
paperwork process, freeing yourself from the contracts of the corporate United States. Once you free yourself of that, even if you know that the whole system right now is based on fraud because the courts and the government doesn't have any legal jurisdiction over us living Americans who have been basically taught that under a fraudulent system, like they own us, which they don't. Once people understand that and you go about living your life freely and you
it
start
does feel
actually
like they own us, that's for sure.
and when you start worrying about local communities and you keep everything close, the highest in the Constitution itself, in the way that it structures government, the highest level of government was to be like the county level. Counties, not even governors
Counties.
of states. It was at every county level. So in the county you live in, the highest form of government would have been that county official, the mayor. You know the mayor of your town because you know where that son of a bitch lives. You got a problem, you can go right to his home.
What about the sheriff of the county?
Sure. The sheriff of the county is the highest form of law enforcement. But at that time, if we got back to that and you stop paying into, and people are like, oh my God, we need, what would we do to keep from a foreign invasion? General Yamamoto said it in World War II. You invade the mainland of the United States, you'll be met with a gun barrel behind every blade of grass. Fend for yourselves, folks. Like, you get your township rocking and rolling. You know what I mean? Like, they ain't going to be able to stop you. And guess what? The only thing that'll stop a bad man with a gun is a good man with better aim. That's it. And I'd
That's
be like,
true.
oh, well, what about drones? Everybody has the capabilities of having every single type of weaponry that any big government would. And at some point, I'm sorry, I don't care how good your technology is, at some point, you got to have people kicking in doors. There is no type of warfare right now besides a nuclear bomb in which you can just wipe out an entire place. But that's so practical, it's not even sound. If you were to just take 15 nuclear warheads to all of America, you wouldn't be able to live here. There'd be so much radiation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
You want to know my craziest theory right now?
Yeah.
All of the Native Americans are actually people who left South America because of the atrocities that were happening to the people down there via like poisoning and stuff like that. That's why most of the Native Americans were in the plains in the very middle of America, because they came up through Mexico from South America and poured into America that way. So Native Americans are actually people from South America
Interesting.
during that whole time, where if you look back and they're like, "Oh my God, this used to be a thriving city with 20 million people. What happened?" Well, their water sources and food were being poisoned. What can you do? You got to
Who,
move.
who was poisoning them? Each
Uh,
other, or who was poisoning them?
I'm pretty sure it would have been like the um powers that be, like in Europe.
Okay,
Same
the guys
same
that came
reason.
over.
The same
Yeah.
reason we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. There was a lot of resources there. They're like, "Hey, you know what? Who cares if we kill women and children? We want that
How does
gold."
that? I mean, because obviously, like you explained why you joined the military. Sheepdog. Protector of others. Obviously, it's an honorable, admirable thing.
Mhm.
That we respect. But it's like, what do you? I mean, it sounds to me, and I've heard this many times from people that have been over there, that some of these wars are basically BS, and that's kind of heartbreaking.
It is,
As
man, but
someone
like
who wants to be a proud American, and you
I
hear like,
told him,
oh, but our wars are BS, our courts are BS. Certainly, family courts are, without any question. I mean, what are we doing?
we're placating into a bunch of globalists telling us who the bad guys are, and we're killing innocent people based on their fraudulent claims. And what I mean by that is, if we would just smarten up as a collective, as people, and when somebody says like, these terrible people have committed these atrocities and we should kill all of them, we should go, where's your proof? Because
Right,
9/11
weapons
was
of mass
was
destruction.
never formally investigated. There was no conclusion that made any fucking sense.
How did Tower 7 fall again? Just kidding. I thought you might know.
The same way that the Twin Towers fell, buddy, by demolition. They claim it was from fires that had caught due to I think Tower 1 collapsing. Started fires within the building and weakened the structure. Yeah. A
Has
building a building that was
a
larger than
steel
any
building,
city block in San
a
Diego.
steel framed one too, not a wood one.
Yeah. And
Just to
now
be
what?
clear.
Paper? They're saying the fuel from the planes burned so hot it weakened the structure. What was in building 7? Because no plane hit it. So what was burning
Yeah,
so hot in
there's
there?
not even the claim that a plane hit Building 7.
Exactly. So with all of this being said, you're gonna say like Bush is gonna stand on a pile of rubble and be like, these people did it, and we're like, yeah, let's go kill them. Let's just be smarter than that. Let's just be
Right.
smarter than that. When they're like, hey, we got rioters and stuff in
But
Los
we didn't
Angeles.
we didn't vote, right? We didn't vote to go to Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't
No, we
think.
didn't vote to go over there. Well,
Because it
you
wasn't
and
an
I.
actual war, right? We didn't declare war, so our representatives didn't vote to go to war. I don't believe. That could be mistaken.
That I don't know. I believe that it was called what was what was it?
What, Operation Iraqi Freedom? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an operation. It's not a war.
Operation.
Well, I mean, even at that point, like they called it the Korean War. What were we in Korea for? And they'd be like, oh, it was because of the North Korea trying to take over South Korea. What endeavor did we have there? What business did we have there? Well, we were trying to promote freedom. Promote freedom? Huh? What do you mean? What did we started that shit.
What about
We made
Vietnam? Shouldn't we
we
don't
made
we have
that
a duty to try to stop communism?
Vietnam. Dude, Vietnam was a war to control drugs. The DEA is the largest drug dealer in the world. They control the drug running industry. They can kill and arrest any other competition. I've said this for decades now. Imagine you're a drug dealer, okay?
Okay.
I'm someone hired by I work for the DEA. I go undercover. They give me drugs to sell to you. So they're like, here
Yeah,
is a
that
shit
happens.
Here's a shit ton of cocaine, right? Or whatever. Let's say fentanyl is the big thing now. So they give me a shit ton of fentanyl, and they're like, "Go sell it to Harrison." Oh, okay. And give you that. You give me money. Okay. So I just sold
Okay.
you drugs for money. I'm a drug dealer too now. I give that money to the government, and that's how I'm free and clear. And then they watch you, and you go turn all that money, or you go turn all those drugs into money. And then what happens? They arrest you. Okay. What happened to every single injured party that you created by the drugs that I sold you? And
I
then
don't know.
when they
They
bust you,
probably
when they
died
bust
of
you,
fentanyl.
when they bust you, there's a shit ton of fentanyl left over, but I collect all the money and I give it back to this DEA, this federal entity. And then I take the drugs that I got from you, because you're in jail now, and someone else pops up as a drug dealer, and like he's a big drug dealer, and I go give him the drugs, and he gives me money, and I give the money to them, and then he sells it. He makes more money with the drugs, and then they bust him, and he goes to prison. And then I collect all the money and give it to the government entity, and I take the remainder of the drugs from that bust and I sell it to the next guy. What am I doing? I'm a
What's
fucking drug dealer.
right?
You're not
Clearly.
stopping the drug problem at all. You want to know how to stop drugs? Make the shit legal. What happens to the market? There's no money in it. Who's your drug dealer then? Well, then everybody would do drugs.
Walmart, I
Everybody
guess. I
do
don't know.
drugs? Well, guess what happens then? Natural selection. Those that overdo it'll die, and it'll become common knowledge to people that drugs are fucking bad for you, and your teeth fall out. People do drugs right now, and guess what? It's illegal. They're making it a market by creating the difficulty in the getting and obtaining the drug. They're the ones making it a valuable market. If you flooded the
Right.
market, if you flood the market, the value goes down, and therefore the people that are trying to do it to benefit themselves, therefore are no longer in the game. So anybody willing to kill somebody over drugs leaves the game because there ain't no money in it. I'm not going to die for pennies. I want the big bucks.
Right.
So then what do? I start stealing cars again.
I mean, what prohibition didn't really work, and then they ended up legalizing alcohol,
Do you
and
want to know
then
why
now you can
prohibition
get
happened?
alcohol everywhere. I'd
Do you
love to
know
know
why
why.
do you know why the prohibition happened?
I have I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Prohibition happened because of moonshine. People were using moonshine to run their vehicles and heat their homes. JP Morgan was losing out
Interesting.
because nobody was using fuel or oil to heat their homes or run their cars. That's the whole reason that the prohibition happened.
Okay.
That's the
So
whole
it's about
reason why they
controlling
made alcohol
the
illegal, was
energy
so that they
resource.
stop people from making moonshine to run vehicles on and heat their homes, because it was such a cheap and effective way for people to go about their lives. It had nothing to do with America getting drunk.
Wow.
Nothing. Or like, oh, people had to drink like in their basements. Well, that's because it hurt a population of people who obviously were trying to drink for a social environment. And yeah, they had to go underground too. But the operation was being run because people were heating their homes and running vehicles off of moonshine.
Okay.
The
What
government had
other
That's why it's still illegal. That's why the government is like, "Oh, making moonshine's legal if you have a license now to do it. You have to pay us, and we can regulate it." Because if it goes unregulated, people can use moonshine because of the high, volume of alcohol in it as a fuel source.
right.
That's why there's no ban or special, ramifications, I guess you could say, to making your own beer. You can make your own beer in your backyard, nobody bat an eye.
Yeah. Okay. What
You start making moonshine, even if you're giving it
they're
away,
gonna
because
come after you?
boom,
ATF?
anybody, local law enforcement, you name it.
This is a lot of things for,
But
that it seems like
you see
people
how
are
it's all a deeper.
misconceptions or false
Yeah,
beliefs on of
yes.
how they happened or why they happened or what happened throughout our history as a country. Do you have any more? And I'm curious, I have to ask you, what what's this gender one? Because I think this is one of the greatest evils of our time, to be honest. Pretty pretty strongly think
That's
that.
easy.
It's pretty sick.
It's the emasculation of a man. And honestly, my
But they do
personal
it to girls too.
well, yeah, that there is just a absolutely demonic attack. That goes all back to spirituality and stuff, because God created man and woman in his own image, right? So
Right.
the devil's biggest enemy down here, or I guess you could say his greatest punishment, The devil's punishment was he's banished from heaven and he has to live down here on earth. If we're made in the image of God, our creator, the Lord, the devil looks at us and sees his adversary. And in a certain way, every single living being, man or woman, is a reminder to him of his adversary. So the mutilation of one's own body through their own choice is the greatest slap in the face to our creator, and the
Right.
greatest won battle by Satan himself. That's the whole reason why that movement
That's
anywhere exists. In fact, the burning the books,
that's pretty
Nazis,
crazy to hear. Yeah.
Nazi
Yeah.
Germany, them burning books, that wasn't them burning literature that was going to help anybody. The burning of books and stuff was the country banishing transgender research in the country.
Transgender.
Yep, transgender
I mean, I know some of their doctors definitely got, you know, Nuremberg trialed for some weird transgenderish
if
genital
you
mutilation stuff, sterilization stuff, but
if
wow.
you go back to the history of Germany, that is exactly why there was all those book burnings and stuff, was because they were banning the country from any more research or technology basically being advanced when it came to transgenderism, because
That's wild.
it was big in Germany, and they were like, "Yep, we're not going to play this game." They're like, all the books in the schools, all the books in the hospitals, all the um any type of literature that had to do with transgenderism, they were like, "We're getting rid of it." It was
I
actually
think we need to get rid of
a
transgenderism
huge
here.
biblical movement. Yeah, well, if we did that, if we got rid of it from our schools and stuff, what would we do? We'd take all these books that have all of this homosexuality and even just sexual plagiarism to infant children's. I'm saying this in the sense of like
Sick.
kids who are like definitely well younger than should be being introduced to any type of sexual act or anything
Yeah.
like that. So when I say infancy of the mind, I'm talking like in that aspect in life. That'd be like you and me going like, "Hey, you know what? These books don't belong in a third grade building."
Because they don't, and they are currently there
So if we went out in the
in a lot of
parking lot
a
and
lot of
started
places.
burning all those books, we would then recreate exactly what happened in Germany. And they'd be like, "Oh my God, they just don't want their kids to learn." It's like, no,
They've
that's
actually used that example talking about book banning on people that have been trying to outlaw the pornography and transgender books in public schools, government schools, I should say.
here's another crazy thing, and I'm not for it. I'm only saying like here's another way that the government just tries to put their hand in on everything. My body, my choice, right? Prostitution's illegal, but porn is not. Make that make sense.
Right? Doesn't really make sense.
I can't
I
sell
think
my body
it's
for
something
sexual
that
favors.
poisons a lot of people's minds.
I can't sell my body for sexual favors and create my own business on it, but I can do porn legally. When this government can make sense at all, I will give one shit. I will give one shit
How can we
until
make the government make sense?
you can't. You have to add God's law. You have to go back to
I mean, I
God's
think
law for
the
anything to
founders
make sense.
made that pretty clear, didn't they? Inalienable rights by their granted by our creator,
Absolutely. But
something like that.
I truly believe that the separation of church and state was actually a move by Satanists basically to keep the Bible out of government, not the other way around. It wasn't a move to like
Yeah.
protect religion more or less. It was to keep Christianity the out of politics so that they can do this. Because if you tried pushing Christ right now in government, you'd be shunned.
Yeah,
And
for
when it
sure.
comes down to it, if you started pushing it hard enough, I guarantee that's where they'd go, "Hey, separation of church and state. Get your Bible out of here."
Okay. Well, close this out then. How do we get back to some resemblance of America, foundational biblical ideal sort of country that has some form of freedoms and sovereignty over ourselves?
First and foremost, point everyone to Christ. Get everyone to read the Bible. Get everyone to be informed on what what actually fulfills a man or a woman, and that's God's law, pursuing Christ. As soon as that happens and you realize that the only thing governing you in this world is the Lord of heaven's armies, no government will be able to subdue you. And in Russia, back in the early days of Russia, I believe it was right after they took over the Tartarian government and they tried pushing communism there. The very first like communist reign in Russia, in their theses and all of their data research, it stated that the only individuals that they could not control were the Christians because their biblical beliefs kept them from doing basically things that a non-believer would without question follow. So very first and foremost, everyone has to seek Christ and get in the word. And second of all, when you start seeking Christ and asking for his wisdom and discernment, the same thing will happen to everybody that he instilled with me. And that's if you ask for wisdom and discernment, the Lord will give it to you. Well, if your battle's against this absolutely fraudulent government, anything in darkness the Lord will bring to the light. So all of their fraud will just be basically forwarded against them. I just showed you three different things today in their own code that screws them. God will bring all that stuff to light. As long as the masses actually start relying on the Lord, you'll be freed from the bondage. That's what it comes down to. And ultimately, when people are like, oh, the riots, oh, this, that, the other thing, don't placate into it. One, don't placate into it. Kill them with kindness. Why not go to the streets then and protest with prayer? And I'd be like, well, they'll throw rocks at you. They threw rocks at Jesus too. They even crucified him. Well, they'll just kill us all. You'd be surprised that there's more good people than there is evil in this world. There's a man in
Yeah,
Venezuela. It used to be like the number one. It led the world in like dangerous countries due to the amount of murders that happen due to the gang and stuff like that. You have to look on a platform that isn't controlled by like Google. So if you were to like utilize a DuckDuckGo, I haven't tried to do it. I've seen these videos and stuff through social media platforms that have been since removed. But the president did exactly that. He started turning the country back over to God and actually having like prayer meetings to pray about all of the gang violence and all of that in their country. And that country had a revival. And they're no longer leading the world even close to the top amount of murders or whatever. And
I know that's true.
the
Factually,
gangs,
yeah.
the gangs almost completely disintegrated themselves due to gang members leaving the gangs because of them being conflicted in their beliefs.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
imagine
prayer
that.
does amazing things.
Yes, it
Look what it's
does.
done for me.
So imagine we
You
just had
know,
2
God
million
does.
men brought to this country who are ultimately brought here to commit harm. So we should be praying that the Lord moves in their ways in order to save them so that ultimately they won't act on those principles of sin. We could pick up guns right now and just start shooting people, like everyone's saying. Oh man, we'll just break out the guns and we'll just shoot all these illegal immigrants. You will placate right into the devil's game. And guess what? If you play the
Yeah,
devil's
that
game,
sounds like it.
you will lose. That is exactly what these dudes want. They want an all-out war so that they can ultimately pull all of their other strings. Because, like I said, once they release those men in these societies with guns and they start going at people, innocent people, there will only be one means to stop them, and that'll be through force. And at that point, the Lord's either going to intervene, brother, or we're going to be in for some real interesting times. You know,
Yeah, I
we're
think
in
we
for
need
we're in for interesting times anyway, but we just need the Lord,
for sure. It's
100%.
God's good and
And
prayer is powerful
and
and we need courage though. We
and
do need people to actually be courageous
and it says that
no matter what.
evil, the wicked run when no one pursues them, but the righteous stand bold as a lion.
There you go.
With God, you always win, brother.
Amen. Thanks for coming
No, it
on,
was
bro.
absolutely, man. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
Let's do it.
All right, bro. Take care.
You as well.